Alrighty, the vocabulary that you received on Monday, right? This is the front side. We did the vocab terms ray through adjacent angles. We're now going to do the last two on this front page, complementary angles and supplementary angles. So I'm going to come here, like I did the other day, and go through the vocab, meaning I'm going to read what you have in front of you, the definition, and then together we're going to draw a picture of what each one looks like. So complementary angles, it says two angles that have a sum of 90 degrees. Basically, you're going to add them together so that they equal 90. So for example, as a picture, I'm going to draw a 90-degree angle. Let me get that box in the corner there to indicate that that's a right angle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the corner at the vertex and draw a ray coming out of that. And so I'm splitting that angle into two parts, two angles. So let's say, for example, it has created a 45-degree angle for both. Now again, my picture's not drawn to scale. It's difficult to draw with this pen, but assume it was drawn to scale and that you could see both split in half would give you 45-degree angles. And so what that means is if I take and add those together, 45 and 45 degrees, that's 90 degrees. So the two angles inside a right angle have to add to 90 degrees. So complementary. Supplementary angles. These are two angles that have a sum of 180 degrees. So essentially, you're going to be able to add those two angles together and it's going to equal 180. Okay, so for a picture, we're going to draw a straight line because a straight line is 180. And now when I split this straight line, I'm going to put a vertex there and I'm going to draw a ray coming out like this. And let's say this first obtuse angle on the left is 140 degrees. And then the smaller angle on the right is 40. So these two angles added together, 140 degrees plus 40 degrees, is going to give you 180 degrees. Supplementary. So today we'll go through some other examples. Like these aren't the only two types of pictures that you can draw for these angles. You'll see a variety today within some videos that we're going to view and then as well in the book. So I would keep this vocabulary out next to you. The next video I'm going to show you is going to give you some hints on, how do you remember what a complementary angle is? How do you remember what a supplementary angle is? And so as you watch the video, if there's anything that you want to jot down next to the vocabulary there to help you out, then please do. So we're going to move to that video. Oops. All right, here we go.
This is an L square used to measure right angles, which are 90 degrees. 90-degree corners are found everywhere in buildings, against walls, in doorways, on the floor. Sometimes in the real world, two angles join together to form a right angle. Other times, two angles join together to form a straight angle. These two angles together form a right angle. We call them complementary because when you add them, they equal 90 degrees. This step is a great example of two angles that form a straight line. These two angles are called supplementary because together they add up to 180 degrees. It's confusing because complementary and supplementary sound alike. I have 3 ways to help you remember them. Don't feel like you have to memorize all 3 ways. Pick the one that makes the most sense for you and remember that one. In the alphabet, the letter C for complementary comes before the letter S for supplementary. And in a number line, 90 comes before 180. So C complementary goes with 90 degrees and S supplementary goes with 180 degrees. A corner is a 90-degree angle, and a corner is complementary, C for C. A straight angle equals 180 degrees, and supplementary angles are straight angles, S for S. Supplementary angles add up to 180 degrees. The word complementary has one P in it. If I take that P and turn it around, it looks like a 9. Put a 0 on it and it's 90. Complementary is 90 degrees. The word supplementary has 2 P's in it. Turn those P's around and they're 9s. Add your zeros to the end. 90 plus 90 equals 180. Supplementary angles add up to 180 degrees.
Okay, so that is one example, I shouldn't say one example. Actually, she gave 3 awesome examples on just ways to remember those angles. So now we're going to look at one more video on complementary and supplementary before we head into the book here. So let's take a look at this one.
With Mr. J. In this video, I'm going to cover complementary and supplementary angles. I'm going to talk about what those words mean, and then we're also going to take a look at how to find missing complementary angles and missing supplementary angles. We have 2 complementary examples and 2 supplementary examples. So let's jump right into number 1. For number 1, we have complementary angles. Complementary angles are angles that add up to equal exactly 90 degrees. So for number 1, we're given a 70-degree angle. We need to figure out what this x equals to equal 90 degrees. So 70 plus what equals 90 degrees. And some of these are harder than others, so some you may be able to figure out using mental math, some you may not. So what we can do, we take the 90 degrees that we want to get to and subtract what we're given. We're given that 70 degrees. That's our known. Subtract these, and that difference is what x is going to equal. So 90 degrees minus 70 degrees equals 20 degrees. So x equals 20 degrees. And let's double check. 70 degrees, what we were given, plus that 20 degrees gives us 90 degrees. Again, complementary angles add up to equal exactly 90 degrees. Number 2, these are complementary angles as well. We have a known here. We're given 48 degrees, so we need to find what y equals. So we can take our 90 degrees that we want to get to, subtract what we're given, and that difference will be what y equals. So 90 minus 48 degrees gives us 42 degrees. So y equals 42 degrees. 42 plus this 48 equals 90 degrees. So 48-degree angle and a 42-degree angle are complementary. Number 3 and number 4, we're going to move to supplementary angles. Supplementary angles have to equal 180 degrees. So for number 3, we have a 65-degree angle. We need to find what angle A equals in order to get to 180 degrees. So we use the same strategy. We can use our 180, subtract our given or known 65 degrees. 180 minus 65 equals 115 degrees. So A equals 115 degrees. So let's double check that 115 degrees plus the known of 65 degrees equals exactly 180 degrees, so that 115 and 65 degree angle are supplementary. So let's move on to number 4, where we are given 128 degrees, and we need to find what angle Z equals. These are supplementary angles, so we know they have to equal 180 degrees. Let's subtract what we're given, 128 degrees, and that gives us 52 degrees. So Z equals 52 degrees. And 52 plus 128 degrees equals exactly 180, so they are supplementary. Now, one thing I do want to mention before we end here, this is how I remember which is which as far as complementary and supplementary. The C here is a lower letter in the alphabet, so it aligns with the lower number. S is further along in the alphabet than C, so it aligns with the higher number. So there you have it. There's complementary and supplementary angles. I hope that helped. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, peace.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the agenda just for a second. So what you just saw on the videos, I actually put here at number 3 on the agenda. These are all just helpful hints for you to remember your angles. And so if you click on each one of these, so if I click on this first one, vertical and adjacent angles, there's a picture here. Again, just for reference on ways to think about, like here, vertical angles and adjacent angles. And then complementary and supplementary is right underneath it. So you can click on that picture. And it talks about really the same thing they talked about in the video. So ways to remember those. Underneath that, it says all 4 angles together. So it's all on one paper here, on one handout. And then lastly, I put a degree measurement on your hand picture. So we, practiced in that quiz on measuring angles with protractors. And this just gives you kind of a reference using your hand to look at degree measurements. So I thought this was kind of unique and helpful, and it's here for your reference as well. So again, at number 3, this is just for you to use for notes at any point in time to help you out with the angles and degree measurements. So we're going to head into the book. I need you on page 543. So make sure you're on that page, and I'll meet you back here if you have to pause the video. All right, so let's take a look on page 543. This is the beginning of lesson 2 on the first page. And let's take a look at a real-world example here. So bridges, engineers use angles to construct bridges. The Golden Gate Bridge is created by combining angles as shown. So number 1, what type of angles make up the 2 angles marked in the drawing on the bridge? So I don't know if you can see it or not, but at the support in the center here, you see a line, and then the base of the bridge, right, you see another line. And so that is creating, so if I were to draw in 2 right 90-degree angles. So right 90-degree angles. There's 2 of them there. So number 2, what is the sum of those 2 angles marked in the drawing on the bridge? Well, if we know they're 2 90-degree angles, it's 90 plus 90, which equals 180 degrees, right? So that's a straight line, the base of that bridge, that's being split into 2 90-degree angles, all together 180. Number 3, in the space below, draw a figure that contains 2 angles that have a sum of 90. So in the vocabulary that we just did, right, we talked about, like number 2, we talked about 2 angles that you add together that equal 180 would give you a supplementary angle. Here in number 3, what they want us to do is give really an example of complementary. Let's try that again. Ugh, bad drawing. Okay, so I'm going to get a right angle in there. And I'm going to split it a little differently this time, so I'm not going to split it into 45 and 45. Maybe this time I take and I draw a ray out this way. And maybe this time, maybe this is, I don't know, 60. And maybe this is 30 degrees. Okay. So again, you're going to see different examples of how these angles work with supplementary and complementary. This is, again, another way you can split it. So you have 60 and 30, which would add together to 90. And that's called a complementary angle. All right, so based on what we've learned so far in the vocab and videos, we're going to scroll down and look at a couple of examples. So look at the got it on the bottom of page 544. So letter A. So you have basically two angles, right? Now, what it's asking you to find is if it is considered supplementary or complementary. That's really what it's looking for. And, you know, right now when you look at letter A, that is not a perfectly straight line by any means. There's a bend to it. So first thing that should tell you is, well, this can't possibly be supplementary because it doesn't have that straight, perfectly straight line at the bottom. Second way that you could check just to make sure is you could take those two angles and add them. So you could do 85 plus 90 and just double check. I mean, do you get 180 when you add those together? And you don't, right? This is actually 175 degrees. So it's not supplementary. It can't be complementary because the two angles would have to add to 90 for it to be that. We're going to say this is neither. Neither. Okay, what about letter B? Now here we have two angles. They're apart from each other. And so if I were to just redraw this and put those two angles together, it might look something like this. Okay, so where this would be the 75-degree angle and this would be the 15-degree angle, you're going to see examples like that. And essentially, again, you just have to think about, all right, if I take those two angles and put them together, do I get, in this case, 90? Well, double check, right? You can always add 75 plus 15. If you add those two amounts together, those actually do add up to 90. And so this is an example in letter B, and I'm just going to abbreviate here, of a complementary angle. All right, let's try a couple more. So we're going to scroll down and keep going. Let's look at the guided practice on 546. Number 1 and number 2, same thing. Identify each pair of angles as complementary, supplementary, or neither. So we have two angles that are apart here. My assumption would be is that we're trying to figure out if this is supplementary because I see this really big obtuse angle at 135 and I see a smaller acute angle at 45. So if I were to put those two angles together, it would look like this. And so if I add those two, if I add 135 and I add 45, just to double check and see, am I getting 180? And you do. So in this case, in number 1, I'm just going to abbreviate again, this is a supplementary angle. Number 2, I'm going to put these two angles together. So it shows a 67-degree angle and a 23-degree angle. So maybe something like this. 67 and 23. I want to double check and see, is that truly, if I add those together, giving me that complementary angle? Is it equaling 90? So if I add those together, I do get 90 degrees. And so this example in number 2 is an example of a complementary angle. Okay. I would like you to try, so on the independent practice on the next page, so 547, you try number 1, number 2, number 3, and you're doing the same thing. Identify each pair of angles as complementary, supplementary, or neither. So try those, pause the video, and then I'll meet you back with the answers. All right, finishing this lesson out today. For number 1, you should have neither. So when you add that 90-degree angle and 43-degree angle together, that is not going to give you that straight line or 180 degrees. So you are neither on that. It's not supplementary, it's not complementary. Number 2, when you take and push together, let's say the 61-degree angle and the 119-degree angle added together, that gives you 180. So yes, that is supplementary angle there. And number 3, 90 plus 90 is 180. So number 3 is also an example of a supplementary angle. So we're going to stop here today. Depending on time in your class, in your crew, or virtually where you're at, then you can always do a little bit more Alex if you need to. Otherwise, like I said, we're done. We're good for today, and I will meet you back tomorrow, Friday, just to review complementary and supplementary and all the angles that you've learned so far to get you ready for your quick check on Monday. Have a great day.